And you could see Pete like giggling and like loving the fact that we're in this place where, you know, it's like a death zone.
The Lord of the Rings franchise had more reported injuries than you could possibly imagine. From glass penetrating through prosthetic feet, nearly drowning in freezing cold water, and dangerous fight sequences with impaired vision, we're impressed all of these performers made it out in one piece.
Everyone got hurt on this movie. Everyone was scarred, everyone went through, you know, a little bit of physical kind of pain.
Number 1. No rehearsal necessary. John Rhys-Davies has a unique fighting style on the set of The Lord of the Rings. Most importantly, he didn't really like to rehearse. When shooting Fellowship of the Ring,
his method would be to say to the stunt guys, "How many of you are coming towards me?"
No matter how many it was, he would just be like,
"Okay, you come at me and I'll hit you with my axe, and then you come and I'll hit you."
The stunt guys would always go along with his plan because these were huge, tough guys wearing a ton of armor.
And they'd say, "Okay, John, try and miss us, but if you do hit us, it's not a problem."
Yeah, John never missed.
He would hit every single one.
There were definitely a lot of aches and pains after doing a scene with John.
Brilliant, because it's real. The stunt guys are absolutely terrifying.
Number 2. Definitely not the most chill stunt to perform over and over. Thomas Kiwi actually left the production of The Rings of Power because he didn't think the stunts were being prepared for enough. Apparently, the stunt didn't have proper wiring set up and he wasn't walked through it beforehand. So he ended up badly injuring his rotator cuff in his shoulder. It wasn't until a day later that he even got checked out for it. Number 3. Let's talk about Hobbit feet.
Standing up at 5 in the morning. And the whole time we're begging to sit down.
They weren't allowed to sit down when their feet were getting glued on,
because the way that their ankles would sort of be bent in the wrong position.
They had to stand for the entire application process with their ankles in an unnatural position.
The days that we don't have feet, we're really excited.
Number 4. Elijah Wood has an incredible work ethic.
There was times when we had time off. Elijah pretty much had no time off, ever.
With that incredible work ethic comes lack of sleep, but that didn't stop him.
I've seen him fall down 3 sets of staircases. Like,
Not even that could stop him.
and then just get up and go, and just walk up.
Number 5. Though John was causing a lot of pain during his fight scenes, he was actually struggling too. It's pretty incredible how well his fight scenes were, considering he couldn't really see anything.
John was wearing a prosthetic that limited his vision to this.
To make matters worse, he was allergic to the prosthetic skin he was wearing, and it made his eyes swell up.
They were slightly shut. And he had no kind of, sideway vision.
It also made his entire face super itchy. Can you imagine?
At times you just wanted to rip the damn stuff up and just scratch.
It made him develop topical eczema all over his face.
I lost all the skin in this area. It was like a skin peel.
Then after a few hours, it would swell up and turn pink.
It was itchy and painful, and one felt very, very self-conscious.
Number 6. Luck was definitely on his side that day.
We had a stunt guy lined up to do this sequence, but Viggo wanted to do it himself.
Viggo had to float down some river rapids in the 2 towers. They had safety guys do it beforehand to calculate where he would float, but it wasn't exactly an accurate science.
What they couldn't calculate was the weight of all the stuff. There was just things that changed the way it was for me.
He didn't end up floating to the same spot the guy before him did.
I hit this spot where the current hit this rock and went straight down, and before I knew it, I was on the bottom.
The current was so powerful, it was keeping him underwater. Nobody on set could find him. Luckily, he managed to kick the wall and propel himself out of the current. But it was a really scary day on set. Number 7. Apparently not your average Splinter.
An amazingly tough Splinter, I think probably made of titanium.
When they were rehearsing for the scene in Fellowship of the Ring, where they run to the Brandywine Bridge and jump onto the ferry, Dominic Monaghan got a wooden splinter deep into his foot.
You think somebody cut his leg off? The sweat was pouring off him.
Every time he'd put pressure on his foot, he was in excruciating pain. Everyone thought this was really something serious.
And they take out this tiny splinter.
Dominic ended up keeping the splinter. He still has it to this day. Number 8. Viggo gets a lot of injuries on set. His character, naturally, gets in a lot of sword fights. With those sword fights came a lot of nicks to his hands.
All his hands, the knuckles all had chunks out of it.
Because he was such a committed actor, he never flinched when having to do another take.
No matter how well you planned it, you were always getting nicks and little abrasions that were very painful.
Number 9. Not really ideal weather for a swim. When Andy Serkis was supposed to shoot his scene in the Two Towers where Gollum thrashes around in the water, the river was actually frozen over, so they brought a crew of electricians to melt the snow.
The snow was melted away, but it didn't necessarily make the water any warmer.
When Andy first jumped into the water, he felt like he'd been punched in the chest.
My heart felt like it had just stopped working. I was instantly, all the extremities just kind of froze up.
Number 10. Nothing a bit of glue can't fix. When Viggo Mortensen was filming a sword fight scene, he got his tooth knocked into by the end of the sword, and his front tooth just snapped in half.
Kind of this big chunk of tooth just broke off and fell on the floor.
Viggo didn't even care. He just picked it back up and said, let's keep it moving.
He said, "Get some super glue, somebody get me some super glue, we can just stick it back on and carry on shooting."
However, they ended up rushing him off for emergency dental work instead. Number 11. Talk about bad luck. In this incident, we have Sean Astin in Fellowship of the Ring, running through the water in his prosthetic hobbit feet. Unfortunately, just a few steps in, and he's got a huge shard of glass piercing through the prosthetic and into his foot. The cut was so deep, he had to miss the rest of the day of filming to get 20 stitches. Number 12. A rough day at the office for Orlando Bloom.
It was painful. It was very painful.
When filming The Two Towers, he was on his horse and ended up getting thrown off, with one of the stunt doubles falling on top of him and breaking his rib.
I was the first one to score an injury, and I think there was a little bit of jealousy.
Orlando suffered through it, went and got it checked out, and was back on set the next morning. Now that's stamina. Number 13. That really had to hurt.
Can you try to kick the helmet as close as possible to the lens, because it'll look great if it just like flies past us.
Viggo Mortensen was given 4 takes to get it right for this scene in The Two Towers.
Each take he kind of got closer and closer to the camera. The 4th take I thought was really good.
Peter Jackson thought one more take and they'd have it.
He didn't say anything to us, but we found out that Viggo had actually broken 2 toes.
The take was so good, they ended up leaving it in the movie. Number 14. Luckily, no one was actually injured, but it could have been fatal.
You're in the middle of fighting and stuff, and you look down, and sure enough, there's the fins of a bomb sticking out in the ground.
Yep, you heard that right. They were filming on some pretty dangerous grounds.
This is a bomb. This is a rocket. All these things you might find out here. Don't touch them.
To make matters worse, they were filming a battle sequence, so they were constantly churning up the earth with every move. The army would come intermittently to clear away the explosives, but there were always some still buried in the ground. Number 15. The amount of stunt work in Rings of Power is actually pretty insane. Lead stunt performer Dana Grant was admitted to hospital after a head injury on set. She's an award-winning veteran stunt performer who feels most calm when she's lit on fire.
I feel quite at ease when I do it.
After treatment at the hospital, it was revealed that she ended up suffering a concussion as well as having to get surgery months after the show wrapped. Alyssa Cadwell, a professional stunt performer, actor, and dancer, she even doubled for Nicole Kidman in Aquaman, was also badly injured on the set of Rings of Power. The scene involved her falling into a large water tank, but unfortunately, her head struck a bolt in the process. She was unable to come back to work for months. Luckily, she's okay, but it was definitely a traumatic experience. Broken toes, chipped teeth, painful allergies, avoiding landmines, and several hospital visits later, we've got the entire Lord of the Rings franchise and TV show to binge. What do you think was the most painful scene to film?